And Efrat. This year continues to be Lulu Nishmat, my father, Rav Abraham ben Eliezer, and Bezrat Hashem. Also, we should see that all the soldiers, wherever they are, as well as we should be Bezrat Hashem see the hostages returned safely in Iraq. Now, this week's Parshat, in this week's Parshat we have the continuation of last week's story where Yaakov runs away from his home based on the insight of his mother Rivka. And Yaakov goes to Lavan's house. In the beginning of this week's parsha, we have the famous story of the famous dream. And this is the beginning of the weeks of the dreams. Quite a few dreams happen. And in this week's, the famous story is the story of the ladder and Malachim. And then towards the middle of the parsha, we have Yaakov working and getting married to Rachel and Leah, and Bilhah and Zilpah get involved, and then all the children and Am Yisrael, the 12 Shatim, are born, 11 out of the 12 were born in this week's parsha, as well as Dinah. And then at the end, obviously, we have Yaakov starts getting to the point where it's time for him to return. Now, before we go into the actual Zera Shimshon, there's something to think about and something to really focus on. Is in the end of this week's parsha, when Yaakov and Lavan, start getting into a little bit of a fight, or what we think is a fight. Yaakov wants to leave. He kind of runs away, and Lavan goes through a very, gets upset at the fact that he runs away without escaping, without really saying goodbye. And instead of responding, if you look at the words, it's really beautiful, is that it says that, Vayomer machatati, what does it says? Vayomer, he says, Lashon Rakah, this line is not here in the Chumash. In the Chumash, it says that Yaakov responds to Lavan, saying, Vayomer, I think he says something like, machatati, something like that. And there are many Mefarshim pick up on the fact that Lavan was obviously upset about this whole situation, and instead of getting upset, response, Yaakov learns just to say, "I'm doing things. What do you want me to do?" Just like very calmly. Vayomer is very always Lashon Rakah, and the bear is always Lashon, like a very strong word. He is a strong thing, and we learn an important lesson just in terms of our responses. That when we learn, and in fact it says that the Gemara and also I believe the Mefarshim and in this week's parsha say that the Avot's ability to restrain themselves at certain times is more important, is even more impressive than the anava of their children, meaning of the descendants of the parents of the Avot. So just something to think about when we learn to respond, and when there are situations that happen to us that might otherwise cause us or call for us to be upset. Take a second, take a deep breath, and respond with a calm manner, and you'll see 9 times out of 10 that that response usually causes a much better response. At least it's a much better response than the yelling that we usually are accustomed to. I just give you an example. I was in the bank a couple of months ago with my daughter, and I was the first one online. I was the first appointment. And there was someone ahead of me. And I was like, I know I had the first appointment. And this woman was talking to the banker, and I told the banker, listen, I don't have time, I've got to go. And 10 minutes passed, 15 minutes passed, and then finally I said to the banker, listen, it's not okay, it's not a good time, it's fine, I'll leave. She says, no, 5 minutes, I'm done. And then the woman yelled at me, she gave it to me like no one's business. And she yelled at me in English and Hebrew, and I was just sitting there, like, what do I do? And I said nothing. I held myself back. I knew I could say something. I held myself back. And even the banker was just, and my daughter said to me, she was like, I never said nothing. How could you say nothing? I said, because if I said something, I know she just kind of bite my face up. And I said, respond back. I said nothing. And in 3 seconds, she just ran away. And I was just like, that's it. There's nothing to say. What am I going to do that's going to make this better? She's upset that I'm yelling at the banker. And the banker is kind of nervous because he knows that he's promised me my turn. Anyway, so just something to think about when we have these moments of anger.
Also, why take away from that schar?
Right, exactly. So I just held back, and I said, and my daughter to this day, she always says to her friends, Gaon had a comment because she's like, my father could do it, anyway, you do it. And I was like, oh. So there's an extra lesson there. I was like, oh, valuable. Anyway, so in this week's Parshat, we have a very unique situation in which children 1 through 10 are born. The children of Yaakov are born in this week's Parsha, and right towards it says Vayhi kasher yalda Rachel et Yosef vayomer Yaakov el Lavan shalcheni b'lecha el mekom la'aretzi. Right, as soon as Yosef is born, in the same pasuk it says Yosef is born, and Yaakov says, okay, I didn't tell you which one left yet. We're going to be doing Zera, and then we're going to go actually in a second. We're going to go from Vayeitzei to Vayeshev, because Zera Shimshon continues his story, offers another idea. But that being said, so the question is, why all of a sudden, when Yosef's birth, why does the pasuk automatically say, okay, now it's time for me to leave? What happened? And the Gemara actually says that we know the Gemara says that why did Yaakov run away? He ran away because he was nervous of Esau. And Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani in the Gemara in Baba Batra, actually, which was just a couple of weeks ago in the Gemara, it says that Yaakov Avinu he knew that the children of Esau will be handed to the children of Yosef. As it says, Vaya Beit Yaakov Eish, Beit Yosef Laval, Esau Lakash. Right? That's the Gemara. And Zera Shimshon, what it says, what's so unique? He's going to get to it now. We're going to ask the question. We'll go to Gemara, the Drush Yud Zayin, which is 17, and the Daf Shin Lamed Hey.
Shla. Oh, it's a good sign.
So he said, there's a short. This one in this week's Parshat Vayeitzei, it's a short question. It's a short drush, but he's gonna expand upon it in Parshat Vayeshev, which is unique or interesting that he brings it up there. But I just found a new person who gives out this Divrei Torah, and he connects to all three of them. He offers basically at the end of the day, the Zera Shimshon offers 3 approaches to this entire question as to why why the children of Yosef and not the children of why the children of Rachel and not the children of Leah are the ones that will defeat ultimately Yosef. Not Yosef. Will defeat ultimately Esau. So he goes like this.
Also, don't you think Rivka could have told Yaakov some
Well,
inherent things about her brother, right?
Yeah, so last week's Parshat you missed last week. Why didn't Rivka say anything? Saying is, we know that Rivka never said to Yaakov, hey, by the way, Esau is going to kill Yaakov. Like she never said that. All she
Right,
said
because
was,
Lashon Hara, Rashi says, right?
Lashon Hara, she was like she was nervous about his kavod. Like if she was, what would it have been a disgrace to
Yitzchak.
To say like your 2 sons are fighting it out.
Yeah.
Right. And last week we learned that it was basically that. That one of it was that it would be a disgrace to his kavod and also a disgrace to the brachot that he gave, because he gave brachot to Yaakov. But at the end of the day, he really realized, and it would have said what would have happened. Basically, he would have realized what happened, what he knew about, didn't know about, what he knew about. The question is that he would have been embarrassed. That Yitzchak would have been embarrassed by the fact that he realized that the brachot that he gave originally to Esau were actually to give them to Yaakov, and then he kind of like it would have been disgraceful to him. So he goes through a whole question.
No, but I'm saying I'm straight up with Rivka
telling
her son, hey,
right, my
brother's an a-hole.
Yeah, my brother's a trickery master.
He's a trickster,
yeah, so
he's a con man.
Yeah, so I just read, I forgot where I read it.
But Rachel did that. Like, Rachel was already at the well already. It was like, hey, I know you want to come over, my dad and all. He's bad news. I mean, he's a real trickster.
Yeah,
But also, Hashem killed Basuel on the spot, but he didn't kill Lavan in Yaakov's case, because Yaakov had to go through that to be a tikkun for Yosef
It's
to
an
be
interesting question. Like you would have said, like, first of all, Rivka should have said something, my brother. But the question is Rivka the right person to say it? Because she herself is the one who kind of encouraged the trickery from the Lechatchila. So like to say, hey, my brother is the same kind of me, like we have the same gene. It's one thing, it's not appropriate. Second of all is
There's one thing with Derech Kedusha,
right.
and another thing when it's straight up idol worship.
So that's one thing, and I think also part of Yaakov's extreme, his midah. Before we get into the actual Torah, one of his midot, of Yaakov's midot, is that he takes, what do we say? Emet Yaakov. right? Only Yaakov takes the combination of Avram's chesed and Yitzchak's gevura, and he learns how to like really, and his simplicity, his ability to just like, you know, most of us would not be able to stand quiet and not do any trickery for 20 years under the guise of some guys, you know, it would be very difficult for most of us to like
But he
say,
also had to
I have
learn
do
in the Sheba era first for 14 years
so
to really be able to
last
survive
week
that.
Actually, interesting, last week we learned it was only shame, it was only Aver, not shame, first of all. And second of all, we also learned last week that...
It was just the way they structured the LLC.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you have any idea where Shem and Aver's yeshiva was?
No.
It's in, what's it called? It's up north somewhere.
Why was only one of them?
That's what we last started.
Here.
It's here, in Efrat?
It's like Efrat to Yerushalayim. It's in that area.
I thought it's like near
It's
Tzfat.
like basically it looks like Beit Lechem.
Interesting.
I just discovered that this
Interesting.
week.
All right, so we're going now
What
to
a
the
trip.
Gemara.
Shema
Where are you?
We're going to do Drush Yud Zayin.
That's right.
So try to stay
What a
close
trip.
because what's going to happen is we're going to go in a second to Parshat Vayeitzei. Towards the end of this one, because Zera Shimshon offers another two answers in Parshat Vayeitzei to the same question.
So what was the question?
The question was, why, first, we have this, the Gemara mentioned after, the Pasuk says, sorry, we'll start with that. The Pasuk says that as soon as Yosef is born, Yaakov decides to leave. It's in the same Pasuk,
Right.
it's in the same, one word later. And the question is, why does Yaakov decide to leave after Yosef is born?
Right.
And the Gemara in Baba Bakr, which we're going to mention in a second, he says that there's a Masoret in our the Gemara says, and at the beginning of the Drush here in Zion, it says, Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani Masoret Haggadah Biyadei. There's a tradition in our hands, She'ein Esav Nofel Ela Biyad Banash Rachel. As it said, the descendants of Esav will only fall in the hands of the children of Rachel. And if we look through history, let's look through history quickly. Yoshua, where does Yoshua come from?
Shows from Shevet Ephraim.
Ephraim, which is the children of Yosef, right? I wrote here Shaul. Where's Shaul from?
Who?
Shaul.
Shows from Binyamin, yeah.
Okay, there we go. Children of Rachel. Amalek. Mordecai and Esther.
I was gonna ask.
Mordecai and Esther. Mordecai is Ishimini
Yeah.
from Binyamin. Right. So all three of those. That's just a quick history. There's other ones too, but they all fall in the hand of. All the enemies fall in the hand of people from Rachel. So the question is why? What is this Masorah trying to teach us? So,
I have a great answer when this is all done.
go for it. I'm happy to hear it. So he says there's, the Midrash says, therefore here that Hashem said, the youngest of the flock, the youngest of the children, meaning the youngest of the children, here in this case, he's talking about the children of Rachel, will be while they're calling them the youngest of the flock, right? These are the youngest of the tribes. So the question is like this. So the first answer he gives is about the koach of tefillah, the power of tefillah, the power of what Leah did. So the question he says here, Yesh Latei Tam, the Zera Shimshon says, why? Let's give a basic level. Lama Dafka Esav Nofel Biyad Banash Rachel. Why does Esav have to be falling to the hands of Rachel? I'm going to tell you right now that you're probably not going to like the first one. You're not going to like the first one. Just because I know that's what you're like.
You know me already.
All right, so it says, behind the Yerushalayim Rachel, we said we understand that Rachel, Shaita Keret Abayit, right? What is Rachel? We know that Rachel was originally, who was Rachel? Originally Rachel was intended to marry Yaakov, right? Shaita Keret Abayit, the name Rachel is Yaakov. As it says later on, it says that the sons of Rachel, the wife of Yaakov, meaning that Yaakov's main wife, let's say, was Rachel. We know already that she already been destined to be in Yaakov's portion. Who was Esau meant to marry?
Leah.
Right? It says, that's why he says on the shot level, that most likely, he says, on the shot level, is that Rachel's children were the ones that were, in other words, Rachel was destined to be Yaakov's wife, and because of what happened, Leah, didn't want to, and now he says, about Leah, he says that Leah was meant to be what? Leah was meant to be Esau's wife, right? As we know that the Pasuk says, she was crying from tefillah. The koach of tefillah was so strong, Leah's koach of tefillah, not that we understand what it really means, but let's just say that she do. As it says, her eyes were tender, smooth, whatever, like soft. whatever, ho'ila tfilatah latilat tatzma, and then umashi tu'il zvuta shabana in asvaisam.
Can I ask you a question? I always thought that it was because the people said the older, to
Right,
Yaakov.
that's Gemara says that.
But that doesn't necessarily mean, now it sounds like it's saying that his mom was a ziv and a shemayah.
Yeah, so that's that's a good question. Right, in other words, I guess we could say it like this. You could say that you're right. It was a zibur min hashemayim.
It was.
Yeah, it was.
So see, was the punishment also because he hit her, she,
We'll get to that in a second.
so it really was min shemayim. It wasn't just people were saying that.
No. It was meant to happen was Rachel was meant to marry Yaakov.
Right.
Right.
And if Asa was he was supposed to do, Leah really was supposed to marry him.
Right, Asa was really supposed to be Leah. Right, Asa was really meant to marry Leah. And then what happened? Leah cries and davens, and she says, the power of Tefillah shows us that she really got what she wanted. But, so he says, an interesting part here in the second, he says, Leah's tefillot were effective in some way, and it prevented her from what Leah's tefillot were effective in the way that she was able to say, I really don't want to marry Esau. Okay, Hashem says, no problem. You don't want to marry Esau, no problem. You got it. But you're not going to get, I'm going to give you that one. But you can have also, you won't be able to also have the ability for your children to defeat Esau in the time later on. He says, as he says here, Sharei, you look later on, look what he says. And it prevented her from being able to kind of destroy Esau's descendants. Sharei, I'm going to Bereshit Rabbah, as we say in Bereshit Rabbah, Shechem b'nei Chashka nafsho. Look what happens with Shechem, right? Where Yaakov was, the Chachamim were criticizing actually Yaakov for preventing Esau from marrying Dinah. So what is it Zera Shimshon is saying is, well, let's go back, let's look at two things at the same time. Leah didn't marry Esau, so what about Dinah? Maybe Dinah should marry Esau, right? So Yaakov is criticized in the Gemara. It's not just Zera Shimshon, but the Gemara mentions that Yaakov was criticized by the Chachamim for saying, what are you doing? Why'd you hide her in a box? We know the famous thing that Dinah was hidden in the box. Why did you hide her? But, right? And he says, you refused to marry her off to someone circumcised like Esau, meaning, this is the Gemara saying, Yaakov, you decided to hide her from being married to someone who is, at least he has a breed, right? At the end, you get punished, quote unquote, for being, what happens? We know the story of Shechem and Dinah. Right? Lo bikash nasiya derech heter. You refuse to marry off in a permissible manner, right? And what happens? Harehi nisat b'isur. She would be marriage in a prohibited manner. So, right? So the Midrash teaches that it's not proper for Yaakov to do what he did for preventing Dinah from Esau. Right? Vav Khan, why would it have happened? Because what was the Gemara is implying, and it's not the Gemara, also many Midrash would say, is that
she would have done tshuva.
Right, exactly. So the Zera Shimshon says the same thing here. Had Leah married Esau, she could have had the ability to do it. Mm-hmm. She could have said, I can do it. She could have said it. She would have had it. She did,
and he had a chush.
He had a chush, exactly.
He even went to go marry someone from Ishmael, just like as a something to try to help out.
So that's what he says. He says, he said it was not proper for her to seek mercy. He says that she should not fall in Esau's portion, right? He said, maybe had she married him, maybe she would have been able to encourage him to stay on the right path. But it was thus sufficient for her. That's why Hashem says, okay, you don't want that? It's too big for you? It's too big for you? Okay, I'll give you the fact that you don't want to get married to Esau. But that's where you can't have that plus the scoop of having your children be able to destroy Esau's future children for what happened. So he says, okay, so he says but this part of this Jewish one, if you will, of this question as to why Rachel's children, not Esau's children, Jewish one is that the power of Tefillah, that Leah's Tefillah, we learn the power of Tefillah, what Leah had the ability to do, to switch, to kind of change the future of and the destiny of what happened, so that we learn the power of Tefillah. But we also learn that there's a little bit of a tiny against Leah, meaning it's a little bit of, you down for something so hard that you don't realize that maybe that's not what's meant to happen, right? In other words, like she really had the potential to do something, and to Dinah, both of them had it. And instead of saying let's embrace this opportunity, they both said, they kind of balked at the idea. So now if we go...
It doesn't answer the question.
It does, sure it does.
No, it shifts it. Because the original question was, why were the children of it? Like, why not why the children,
Yeah, so the answer is why did children of Leah, why did Rachel?
we went over, but, so why, for example,
Yeah,
if Leah would have been, why would Leah have, their children have had the schools? It doesn't really answer the question.
the sweet.
Why did Yaakov himself wasn't he the children? And Yosef wasn't even born yet. I mean, he was just barely born, right?
Right, so he says, so the answer is, the way I see it, at least,
Yaakov was right side, so why is Yaakov, why is he in the schools enough?
so he says,
And don't forget, he had the power of the brachas already.
so, yeah, so right. So
He had the power of God, Yitzhak gave him the power to misgaber everybody.
Right.
So what does he need anybody else?
So the answer to that would be, I mean, again, I don't have the full answer to it, but I believe that I believe that the answer is that, that Leah was asking for too much. Meaning she was asking for everything. She was asking both not to marry him, and also to be able to say, my children should marry to Esau. So instead of saying, so Hashem said, I'll give you one, I can't give you both.
I heard that, it's beside the point.
Why is that beside the point?
Again, the question is, why do you have to wait for anybody else? What's the excuse? Like, who says, like, let's say Leah had it, so what was her excuse that her children, there should have any excuse more than Yaakov himself to defeat Esau? It doesn't make sense,
No,
especially after the bracha that he got from Yitzhak.
So I
All you're doing is shifting the question. You know what you're answering now, why it shifted over to fine, so where did it come from to start from? Where did the schus, the ability, his special power that Yaakov needed that he himself didn't have? I don't want to hear it went from there to Yaakov. So where did it come from?
So Yaakov, I think, didn't. What you're asking, I think you're asking. Maybe I don't understand, but maybe I hope you're asking the right question here. What you're asking is either Yaakov should have enough of the schut or the brachot, so therefore he should be able to do it himself. So that's part one. Or you should say is where's the original? Or you're asking is where's the original schut that Leah was thinking about? Meaning she's saying I have this schut and now I'm willing to relinquish it in order to give it to Rachel because.
So 1 second. So are you saying that because Leah intrinsically had the power to come? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, she had
to transform Esau.
Yeah, but she decided not to.
That's an answer.
Yeah, she said she had the ability.
She lost because of who she was.
Right. She decided. She said, "I want." She originally she was meant to. She was destined, quote unquote, whatever that means. Her zivug was meant to be Esau, and then she says, "I don't want to marry Esau, even though I'm supposed to." And therefore, I'm giving up. Meaning, intrinsically, she's giving up. She's saying, "I'm going to use my power with tefillah instead of saying I'm going to try to fix him and put him on the right direction. I'm giving that up. I'm relinquishing that ability, and therefore, I'm giving all the power up. And I'm saying my tefillah, all my tefillahs are going into."
So it was originally the connection through the Hebrew of the Leah and Esau together, that the children would have been able to, if not her, then at least the children would be able to conquer. And that get transferred over to Yosef.
Right.
Okay, that's
and not Yosef, the Bnei Rachel, because it could have been him. Now let's go to Parshat Vayeitzei. Interesting. I know it's Parshat Vayeitzei, Drush Aleph. It's the reason. There's a reason why I'm asking. This is where the Zera Shimshon mentions. It's a very long Torah. I'm going to go back. We're going to stop. We're going to kind of jump around. But he goes right into the point here. But the question that he asks. If we look in the middle in the beginning, he kind of asks, he asks a couple of questions based on the Gemara, but we'll start where it says, Drush, Parshat Vayeitzei, Drush Aleph. It's about, I think it's about the middle. It says, V'yesh lomar d'aminu v'baba v'akra.
What's that, the page on Shin and Gimel?
Yeah, Shin Pei. That's it, V'yesh lomar. Here's some right there. Yes, sorry, Shin Pei Aleph. It's on
Baba
Shin Pei.
Basra.
Right. So it says V'yesh Lomar.
So it's about 4 lines down on Shin Pei Aleph.
Yeah,
Pei Aleph.
like the second paragraph, right? Yeah. Okay, so he says, there's a reason why I'm doing it, but you'll see in a second. Yep. So the second, in continuation with this question, which I think this answer you like more, even though the first answer was good, the second one was, so he says like this. in the introduction to this part, we talks the Zera Shimshon mentions the whole idea that we know so he mentions that we learned about it before, but he mentions here about the whole idea that Beit Yaakov Eish, Beit Yosef Lava, Beit Yosef Lakash, the Mach.
That was my answer.
Yeah, after. But anyway, so he mentions that in the beginning, and the question is why we have to. He asked the question, why was Yosef specifically singled out? As in other words, why Beit Yaakov, and then why Beit Yosef? Why Yosef? So the question is, what's the connection? That's that's the first few paragraphs of this Torah. He said, "V'yesh lomar da'amrinan b'Bava Batra Perek." So in Daf Kuf Chaf Gimel of Bava Batra, which is also was quoted in the previous in Parshat.
It wasn't so long ago in the Daf Yomi.
Yeah, Daf Yomi was about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
About 3 weeks ago. So he says like this.
Correct.
Vayikasher Yalda Rachel et Yosef. Which, right, as soon as Rachel gave birth to Yosef, what happens? Yaakov says, it's time for me to leave. Yaakov waited to return to Canaan until after Yosef, who was like the antithesis, if you will, to Esau. This is exactly the same quote that we quoted in the previous group. He quotes the same Gemara, he says the same, the whole Gemara is quoted again, meaning that the youngest of the flocks will be the one to drag them off. And the Gemara states there, as he continues, so he says that Yaakov returned to Israel knowing, because he saw that Esau would be delivered only in the hands of the offspring of Yosef, as we said in the Pasuk in Ovadia. So now he says, he's going to ask the question again. This answer, I think, is beautiful. This is a beautiful answer that talks about responsibility, in my opinion. Okay, so he says, why specifically the children of Yaakov, of Rachel and or Yosef? V'yesh lomar, and we have to explain that Rabbi Yaakov Shoftim, and the Yaakov Shimoni and Shoftim says, Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, again, I believe it's, Shmuel bar Nachmani says, Masoret bi'adinu she'eni sam nofel el biyad banei shel Rachel, lama, she'im ba'im hashvatim l'dinim Esav. Let's say the other 9 tribes, right? Well, sorry, the other 10 tribes, but let's take out Binyamin because Binyamin wasn't born yet. Lomar, right? If the other tribes come to Esav and say, Lomar hadafta et achicha, why are you trying to pursue and trying to kill your brother? Hu haya omer lehem, lama hadaftem et achichem. Why do you, Esav, why do you, brothers, why did you get to run after your brothers? Right? Right? There would be no better than him, meaning both of them are chasing the brother. Right? When Esau comes to Yosef, why did you pursue your brother? And Esau will be unable to answer. If you say, Esau will try to offer a defense for his actions, Yosef would say, wait, if you're defending yourself by saying that Yaakov wronged you, even my brothers did something wrong to me, right? What do we know about the what do we know when after Yaakov dies? What happens? Yosef tells his brothers, nothing happened. It's all okay. It's all from Hashem, right? Instead of saying what? Instead of saying I'm angry, I'm going to kill you, whatever. That's what the brothers wanted. The brothers changed their language to protect themselves, and Yosef just says it's a kol l'tovah, right? Even said that's what biyadu shotei. Right? Asaph says that, automatically he's quiet. That's the midrash.
Yeah, the only problem with that is the chronologically, Yaakov only moved when Yosef, right after Yosef was born.
Right, no, so the point is that we have to look at it from the children's perspective, right? We have to look at it from the descendants of Esau. It's not Esau directly, but Esau's children could say, the children of the Shvatim could say to the children of Esau or to Esau himself and say, obviously, it's not. You're right. Chronologically,
that's the question of Parshat. He didn't leave until Yosef was born. As soon as Yosef was born, he left. Well, he's not. It's like you're talking about way in the future.
Yeah. Well, again, you have to remember. How old was Yosef?
Why didn't he wait?
How old was Yosef when this whole thing had started? So it happened around 17. So only 17 years, right? In other words, we know that there was a gap.
When did Yosef feel he could face Esau? When Yosef was born.
Yes and no.
17 years, it's 16 and a half years.
Right. So whatever, the point is that I think he's saying is that the descendants, meaning, I don't think he's the Shvatim themselves. I don't think he's saying Esav to the Shvatim. He's saying is that the children of Esav could say to the children of Yaakov, to the children of Yosef could say, hey, you've chased your brother, I chased my brother's chased me. We both have the same claim. But Esav has a way, Yosef has a way to stop Esav's claim, or the children of Esav's claim. Why? Because he says Yosef could say is, at the end of the day, I didn't hold any grudge against them. I could have, I should have, but I didn't. And that's, to me, the claim he says, this is why you take responsibility and say, listen, you're right. We both have strife against our brothers. We both have a grudge against our brothers. But one of us took the high road and said, listen, this is meant to be. And now if we look at it that way, we can say, okay, that's a good answer, right? The time that they had, meaning the claim that the brothers
doesn't
had.
fit into the Midrash. The Midrash says the Bnei Achim, I would have just said Yosef then. You just contradicted yourself, not you, but it says the Achim can't say that because he's going to answer back to the Achim, because you did your brother.
Right.
So they contradict the Parshat Shine the Midrash, which is, because they should have just said Yosef, not the Achim. That Yaakov couldn't face Esau until Yosef was born.
Right.
It doesn't say Yosef, it says the Achim here in the Midrash.
No, so the point is that Esav couldn't be born. Esav couldn't be battle until Yosef was born, right? That's. And then
It says the children of Rachel.
Right, the children of Rachel.
But we just said here the children of Rachel couldn't say anything to Esau because Esau would have said, look how you treat your brother.
No.
It doesn't fit in shot of the Midrash.
Relax.
Sorry.
I understand what you're saying.
I didn't have any whiskey.
Sorry. You should take some.
So the point is, the Midrash says that it's the children of Rachel that can defeat Esau. Okay?
Right.
Binyamin wasn't born yet. Okay? Put
Right.
Binyamin aside for a second.
Okay.
Then you have the other 10 sons.
Right.
The other 10 sons, Esau is going to say is, I ran after, what can Yosef say to Esau? Yosef says, hey, we both, let's read it again. Let's say the rest of the tribe would level a claim against Esau. Right? Why did you chase after your brother?
Right.
And he would say, why did you go after your brother? Right? Then what happens is the playground is now level. It's a level field, right? Yosef says to them, no. Yosef has the power to say, Yosef says, when Esau comes to Yosef, Yosef will say, why did you chase your brother, right? And he says, why can't he say that? Because Yosef says, if you say he did bad.
Okay. Let me rephrase my question.
Go for it.
Again, it should have said here, according to this tribe, it should have said, not Bnei Shalach, just say Yosef, because Binyamin can't make that claim. It's only Yosef can say.
So right, so that's
it doesn't fit in the pshat of them. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so hold on. So you're right. So that's why. You're right. Yosef can make that claim, and maybe Binyamin can't make that claim.
Okay.
However, you're right about that. There is something to be said about that, and that's one of the things that I still have a question about. Why Binyamin? No, sometimes they say it's Binyamin, and sometimes they say it's Yosef. Yeah. But like you said, this claim.
The first answer is better. I mean, we're talking about the
right. This claim. He said here. Look at this. We're about to continue. Look what he said. Aval kashek shenolad Yosef. Right. When Yosef was born, right? There you go. None of these answers, the claims, were good. There you go. Right? You're mitkaven to the Iyun Yaakov. So good for you. Just like you said. Right? You should have just said, in the hands of Yosef, right, there you go. See, there you go. Below Rachel, not Rachel's son. Do you want some more drink? What's your name? David Melech Yisrael. He is. What? Hold on. What Shevet is from? Do you know?
David Melech.
David is from Shevet Yehuda. When you get to this in a second, where Shevet Yehuda, right, is from Bnei Leah, and Bnei Yosef. Mashiach ben Yosef comes first. And in the time of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David,
we're going to tie this all together.
Right, they come together. It's the first time that the two Bnei Leah and Rachel. We'll get to it later. Anyway, so he says, you want something else to eat? Want some chips? Chips?
Where's the gum? Where's the candy? Where's the sugar?
The candy. I am the candy in my shul, but I didn't get into it. Anyway, so he asked the question. He's right. He should have said, right? Rachel has no question. Is no, like you said, Rachel has no connection. It should have just said Yosef, because Yosef is the only person who can make that claim. Like you said, Baram Kushakar. The truth is, right? So now he says this is the next kind of piece, and I like this one a lot also. So he says that another reason why he return, he was nervous that what was Esav going to say? Esav was going to say, how do you marry two sisters?
You're trying to keep the Torah. You
Right.
took my wife.
Esav was going to say, I got the best claim against my brother. My brother's the guy who's supposed to be following the Torah. Hey, look what happened. Right?
Stole my wife.
Right? So he says, due to this, Yaakov continues to delay until he gets to Yosef. Why? And now he's going to say, how is Yosef's presence going to be the critical factor, the linchpin? We spoke about David. Here, Yaakov, what we know that the Gemara says in Kiddushin, that when we're checking, the halacha is, the Chumash says, the Torah says, that when we're checking for chayalim, when we're recruiting soldiers, according to the Torah, when we're recruiting soldiers, what do we have to do? We have to make sure that they don't have sins. Right? They're not nervous, they're not scared about the sins that they may have committed. That's the Torah. David HaMelech comes when David HaMelech says, I want one extra. I want them to have yichus. Why? Because then they have zt'l avot. Beyond just the mitzvot that they do themselves, and they're not nervous about their chata'im, but also they have zt'l avot. That's what David HaMelech says. And in fact, the Gemara in Kiddushin says that when someone says, when they're trying to show their yichus, they say, I come from the family who was a soldier of David's army, then we don't have to say anything else. Because once a person says that, we know that the yichus is good. Shayu kulam yuchasim. Right? What's the reason? Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav. Like I said, Kadesh is chutam zchut avotam misayatam. The Gemara says that why? So there is chut because they don't have any sins. Plus the zchut avot will be there for them. Right? A person doesn't go to war unless he has. Right? If you don't have a legitimate lineage or yuchus, you can't go because you're in constant danger. You don't go to war. So now, what does he say? He says, if Yaakov were to have indeed transgressed the prohibition of marrying two sisters, only this. Why would Bnei Rachel be blemished and not the Bnei Leah? Because Rachel was the one, even though Rachel was the one to be destined to marry Yaakov, what was the reason? The reason is because Rachel was the second sister that got married. Right? Leah was the first one, so she's okay. But the second one, Rachel, right? Leah was first. And if Yaakov himself would conquer Esav, right? So he's saying even though he was innocent of marrying two sisters, right? He said, right? So he says here like this.
Even if he was not.
Right, despite his ostensibly not being innocent of sin because he married two sisters, not being innocent, right? Meaning being guilty, right? Right? So he says, whereas one who has a sin in his past generally returns from the army instead of participating in the war, right? Because he sinned, right? It would not prove that he would never sin, for we could say instead that he repented, maybe he did tshuva, right? That's what we know. If the children of Leah would be victorious, we could say that maybe Leah's children. Why would it say that? Why would it say that? If let's just say, right? Let's put this out for a second. Hold on, before you ask the question.
I'm trying to understand it. Like he's saying, he could have done tshuva by that time.
No, hold on. What he's saying is, why do we say that when let's take out the war situation for a second, and I'll use the Yaakov and Esau situation. Yaakov says, I'm nervous that Esau is going to have a claim against me. I married two sisters, right?
Right.
If Leah's, now let's just say Leah was since Leah married Yaakov first, so she's legitimate, right? For a second, just for the purpose of this, to explain. So if Leah's children would have beat Esau, what would we say? Oh, they have yichus, right? The yichus is there, right? So he says, what could Esau say? Since he could still claim that what? That Rachel's children are Plumim, right? In other words, because Rachel was the second sister to get married, so the children are Plumim, or God forbid, they're blemished. L'fichach ratzah Kadosh Baruch Hu she'esav lo yipol el b'yad b'nea rishon Rachel davka shemizeh yakiru v'yedu kol ha'olam she'Yaakov beheter nasav Rachel. Right? Uvnehem hem yuchasim. He says like this: Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to show, and instead of saying is Leah's children are the ones that are going to be the ones victorious, it has to be Rachel's children, because Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to show Esau that you have no claim. I'm giving the power of the ability to beat you, Esau, to Rachel's children, so that you can know that the children of Rachel are on equal stature to the children of Esau. Meaning that Hashem said that I need to. How am I going to prove? Right? Hashem knew that there's going to be a problem. Right? There's a very big problem here, and he says that that's the answer is Hashem Kadosh Baruch Hu want, and we're going to explain how this happens. So let's see here. Hold on a second here. I'm just trying to find the end of the verse here. No, okay, so we're before I don't want to. It gets a little bit deeper into this thing, but the point is that there are three answers basically as to why. We're going to kind of summarize for this part. Three answers as to why. Yet Rachel's children. This is like Jewish one. If you want to, we'll see how much time we have left. But Jewish one is we just did Jewish Yud Zayin and also Jewish one of Vayeitzei intentionally because they're connected. So the three possible answers. One is the power to show us the power of tefillah, Leah's tefillah. That Leah was intrinsically meant to marry Esau, and she couldn't bear. She couldn't take that responsibility seriously, whatever that means. God forbid she might be belittling Leah's, sitkut. But she couldn't say, she said, I'm willing to daven hard enough to not be part of Esau, meaning not to be married to Esau, and I'm ready to give up my children's ability to beat Esau down the line. But her tefillot were so strong that we know already that it says, her eyes were very soft and very kind of filled with tears, because she was davening so much that she shouldn't be married to her. And so Hashem said, well, you don't want to, I can't give you both. Originally, you should have been the one to destroy Esau, or at least you should be, actually not destroy,
transform him.
You're transforming. You didn't want to do that, so I'm giving you the ability, I'm listening to your tefillah, but I'm not giving you the ability that children, because you took that upon yourself, so now Esau is going to be your the enemy, and now the children of Rachel have the ability to, and the zchut to beat Esau. The second answer is as follows, based on Parshat Vayeitzei, in the first Jewish Parshat Vayeitzei. 1 second here. Okay. So he says the second one is that in the event that we know that that the brother, basically what happens is that the question is what happens when why Dafka Rachel's children, or in this case why Dafka, let's say Dafka Yosef, because this answer was specifically which one was Yosef, as you said. So the answer is that the only person that can come and claim against Esau is Yosef. Yosef, because every one of the other Shvatim, except for Binyamin who's not involved here, but all the other Shvatim don't have a claim to say, hey, Esau, what are you doing? Because Esau will say, well, you're also held a grudge against your brother. Not only that, my grudge, at least I have somewhat of a valid grudge because he stole something from you. You're doing it on what? You're doing it based on dreams. On a dream that he had that he's going to rule you, so you decide to hold him and potentially kill him, throw him, sell him to the Egyptians and wherever. So what kind of claim do you have? So the only person who can say, I have a claim is Yosef, because Yosef could say, I held back. At the end of the day, I said this was all for the best. And since I have that claim, Esau has never that ability. And the only person who has that is Yosef. He doesn't really answer the question as to why that's Yosef as opposed to the other brothers, but let's just say that the answer is that the point is that Yosef's ability to understand and to kind of to hold on to the ability to say that really everything is l'tovah. That's answer number 2. Answer number 3 is, why is it specifically the children of Rachel? Because when you go out to war, you need people who are, you don't necessarily people who are strong. You need people who are, the Torah says you need only people who are tzaddikim, right? Not sin, right? They're not sin, right? And when you go, the Torah says one thing, and then David comes and says, I want the second thing, I want yuchus. That's based on the Gemara. It's chut avot, right? So Yosef says, so the question is, so we now we have the yuchus. And then, if that's the case, then what's Esau going to say? Esau has a nice good claim. He's always going to hold it against the children of Yaakov and say, listen, you married 2 sisters, right? And I have this, you're claiming Yichus, but then what should have happened? The Yichus should have then gone to Bnei Leah. So Bnei Leah should have been the one. But Hashem says, no. I want to show that it's not the Yichus. It's not that, he wants to say is that the status, in this case specifically, Rachel and Leah, in this case, and only in this case, Rachel is the one who gets the Bnei Rachel are the one who gets the ability to be Esau, to show that it's not only that the yichus of Rachel's children are at the same level as the yichus of Leah's children, and instead of just saying Esau to prove or to disprove Esau's claim against the fact that he married 2 sisters, because that could have been a claim that Esau could have made. And Hashem says, no, I don't want that to be the claim. I don't want that to be the claim ever. So in order to make sure that Esau doesn't have that claim, Hashem says, no, I'm giving the yichus, I'm elevating the status of the yichus to Rachel, who otherwise would have been a problem. So that's the first kind of long, but 3 answers. Again, it just shows you Shivim Panim Torah, really a nice, long, but interesting approach to the entire experience, to the entire story of why Yosef and why Yosef specifically. Now I'm going to go to let's see if we have about 15 minutes, right?
Yes, Mark.
There wasn't Marav last week. You were here.
Yeah.
It's a matter of a few minutes since you read the video.
No, it's
They're
here.
not going to do it. They're doing it here, aren't they?
They're doing it.
I didn't
Yeah, 1:45.
Should do it at 9 o'clock.
1:30, no?
No, 9 o'clock.
9
Shir
o'clock.
David, and Marav is at 9:45
Yeah,
here.
but I don't think they're doing it every week now.
No, twice now.
But you said that, no?
Are they doing it every? They do it every
I
night.
don't know. I thought you said that last week.
No, last week. I think last
Why
week
did you do a minion last week?
they do it every night.
Every night,
That's what I
9:45.
just said.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to down Mark.
Yeah, I think
You guys talking about church, I mean, I'm like, there's a Mark here.
No, I think they do it every night.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Let me just see if I can find a short one. It work in the time frame that we have.
It's been a rough day. Space it
Okay, we can do Jewish Vav. Jewish Vav is nice.
out. Where's the sun going?
In Parshat, it's a good question. You're right. We jumped around. So Parshat Vayeitzei, Jewish Vav. So we know in the beginning of this week's Parsha, it says, one second, I just want to see if maybe we'll do a different one instead. Yeah, okay, so we'll do Jewish Vav. So Jewish Vav says, we know that the dream, the beginning of this week's parsha starts with Yaakov's dream. It says, Pasuk Manarama Makom Hazeh Ein Zeh Ki Bet Elohim. Right, so he says, we know that Yaakov says this place is, the word awesome, not like we use it today, but there's nothing other than Hashem. This is not only what is it? This place is the Shara Shamayim and Beit Elohim. Kashay, the Zera Shimshon says, Lama Amar B'Lashon Shlila Ein Zeh. Why did Yaakov say there is nothing other? Right? You should have said something. Hayal Omar Zeh Beit Elohim. Right? You should have said this is it. Why do you have to say there's nothing other? Drush Vav, Parshat Vayeitzei, Daf Shin Tet Vav. In these far
At the bottom.
Yeah, the bottom. So he says, Lama Dafka Amar Hashevach V'od Lama Dafka Amar Hashevach Shel Norah. Why do you say the word awesome? Umal Ma Norah. Why? And also, what is the meaning of how awesome is this place? Mashma Norah V'yoter, meaning it's that amazingly awesome. I have one of my uncles always says he doesn't use the word awesome at all.
So
It's too. He says it's too overused, and we really should be using it only for one thing, to describe Hashem.
But you know what's weird? is he didn't realize that was the muck of the mikdash.
Yeah. So
But he didn't realize that after the dream.
right. He didn't realize that. That's exactly.
He didn't feel there was nothing.
Right. So he didn't know that. He didn't realize that yet. But he still says this place is awesome. Right. So he says, "V'katav Beit Yosef Orach Chaim Siman Tuf Kaf Mehem B'Shem Hagavot Mordecai." He says it in the name of the Mordecai, and he says, "Yesh b'nei Adam shemesimim even tachad Osham le'el tzitadav." He says our people, the Beit Yosef quotes the Mordecai and says that there are people who put a stone under their head. Nowadays we kind of do is we sleep on the floor. Some people do, we'll sleep under,
Tisha B'Av.
Right. So he said on Tisha B'Av, meaning on Tisha B'Av specifically, you sleep on the floor, you sleep on, you take the mattress off, instead of putting the mattress on the bed, you sleep with some change. He said, why does it say that? He says, he slept on, we know that Yaakov slept on one of the stones, right? And in his dream it says, Beit HaMikdash Ra. We know that the Midrash says, it's not just, we know that he said, we saw the Beit HaMikdash, and he also saw Churban. That's what the Beit Yosef quotes the Mordecai for saying.
So that's why he took the stone.
That's why you take the stone, is you take the stone because of the Churban. You don't say they take the stone because of just because it's down. You sleep on the stone.
You needed a pillow.
You need a pillow, right? Exactly. That's not exactly a pillow. How do we know? Where do we see the hint? Right? Maybe I could say he saw the Beit HaMikdash. I can understand that because he said Manara Makom Hazeh. But how do you say? How do you get to the point that he saw the Churban too? Right? I can hear. The other one is a little harder. So now he says. This is what we have to explain. How awesome is this place? He said this place, this place is we're talking about Beit HaMikdash. After seeing Beit HaMikdash, did not simply say this is the house of Hashem. This is not. So he says, so he says, he's answering these questions. So why does the Gemara use the pasuk use or why does Yaakov say the specific way? He's saying this is not the house of God, right? This is not anything other than the house of Hashem. Ein Zed, Yaakov is saying is that this Mikdash is not eternal, meaning it's not forever. For this one is destined to be destroyed. Which is the one that Hashem, Beit Mikdash will exist. As it says, that what we know, the Gemara in the Midrash and Gemara mentions it also. He says that the third Beit HaMikdash is the one that will be built by Hashem himself, not by people, not by humans. Right? So he's saying there's nothing other than the house of Hashem. Meaning Yaakov was saying that nothing other than the house of Hashem, meaning the Mikdash that was built by Hashem, will be the one that lasts forever. Meaning this Nolam Hu Shar Shemayim, but this place will be forever the place for Shar Shemayim. So he's saying is that when the pasuk says Manara Makom Hazeh Ein Zeh, the word Zeh repeats twice. He didn't ask that question, which he should have asked, right? Ein Zeh Manara Makom Hazeh Ein Zeh Ki Beit Elohim. So he's trying to say is that he's putting two things. Zera Shimshon is putting two things in. How did Yaakov know? That it's not the Beit HaMikdash we could say, but he says it's also Shar Shemayim, it's also the place. So what the Yaakov Avinu was saying is this place that we see, the Beit HaMikdash that I see, is not the actual Beit HaMikdash that's going to be the one forever. The one that's going to be forever is, he says, is Beit Elohim, the Beit Elohim, the one that Hashem builds. That's the house that is going to be permanent. The other one, the one that I see, is going to be the Beit HaMikdash that is going to be destroyed, and that's why he chose this stone. And he says, but this place, the area, meaning it's not the physical thing, but rather the place itself, the kedusha of the place itself, is the Shar Shemayim. Meaning he's acknowledging that this place is holy, but he's also acknowledging that the physical building is not permanent until Hashem himself brings it, builds it. And now he says, why do we say the word? Now let's go back to the question as to why we specifically use the word manara. It says, okay, right? It says here, we know that Daniel, after, as known in the Gemara and Yoma, it says that after the Churban, that after the destruction of Beit HaMikdash, Yirmiyahu and Daniel didn't want to say Gibor v'Norah, right? They didn't want to say it to talk about Hashem in the first bracha of Shemona Esrei, what do we say? Ha'el ha'gadol ha'gibor v'hanorah. The Gemara says in Yoma, says that we didn't want Yirmiyahu said that we shouldn't do that. Because why? Because Hashem, because we have enemies that destroy the Beit HaMikdash. And Daniel says, argued that calling Hashem powerful when we were just put into Galut is also not appropriate, right? Rather Hashem.
I don't understand that.
What do you mean?
What?
Daniel and
It implies that
Daniel and Yirmiyahu both said we shouldn't use the words Gadol and Norah to describe Hashem in the Shemona Esrei after the destruction of Beit HaMikdash.
I heard that.
Okay,
I understand.
why? So the Gemara says, Yirmiyahu says that our enemies have destroyed and defiled the Beit HaMikdash. Right? Where can we show? Where can we show that Hashem is really awesome? How can we show Hashem is awesome if you just got Beit HaMikdash just got destroyed?
It's not happening. It's in your code.
No, it'll be okay. Okay, so and Daniel says, how can we describe Hashem as powerful when we just were sent into exile? Right? So where does this play?
On the contrary, what it's going to show that Hashem's weak if you don't.
Hold on, he's going to get to that in a second. Your questions are very good. You're mechaven to the right things. So he says,
I promise you I haven't seen this.
That's okay.
I believe it.
What do they say? Anshe Knesset Gedolah say exactly what you say. Anshe Knesset Gedolah says there are, he says, this itself, like you said, are indeed his awesomeness. Right? Because if not for Hashem's awesomeness, what would happen? How can one person survive among the rest of the nations? Or how can we say that the fact that the Hashem Beit HaMikdash was destroyed and still, right? Even though they tried to destroy the Jewish people, so they destroyed the Beit HaMikdash. Yes, it's sad. Yes, it's horrible. Yes, it's we're so sad about it. But what happened? The Jewish people still survived. Right? Like you said, these are his great things. These are his qualities. Meaning he could have easily, what could have happened? The Jewish people could have been destroyed. Right? It didn't happen. Right? So yes, the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. And yes, we were sent into Galut. Right? When we adopted Norah, Hayam, Midato Sheyavo. Yaakov was the Midah of Norah. When we look in the secrets of Shemona Esrei, each one of them corresponds to one of them. We see that Yaakov was saying, so what he's saying is exactly what you're asking. He's saying it's exactly the fact that they were destroyed, even though, not this fact, even though the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, and even though you might say, how can we say it? How can we say it? And Daniel and Yirmiyahu say,
why is it God's weak?
Right, exactly. So he says, no, the Anshe Knesset Gedolah said the opposite. It shows that even though Bnei Israel could have been destroyed, and the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, but it shows Hashem's awesomeness and his power to say, even though that was Beit HaMikdash and we were sent into Galut, the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash and we were sent into Galut, the fact that we still survived and we still got through somehow. We magically survived, right? It was clear that Hashem loves us so much. It shows his awesomeness and it shows his greatness. We can't look at the negative like what Yirmiyahu and Daniel said. In fact, the opposite. Why are we challenging? Why are Yirmiyahu and Daniel challenging you? In fact, we should be saying is what? Yes. We acknowledge the fact that the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed. We acknowledge it. It's okay. It's fine to say that, but we also have to acknowledge the fact that Hashem allowed us to survive and live throughout the years. There were many times when we say, what just happened? Right? How could that happen? Right? There were many questions. Not too long ago in history, we just saw it. Again, how can this happen? Right? How can we say, where's God? Right? Like all these questions. And I said, no, look at what happened through that. Look what did it enable us to do? Enable us to have the tefillot, the chesed, the greatness of us doing things for other people, right? And then all of a sudden you say, wait a minute, so maybe, I'm not saying that it's a good answer, I'm not saying it's the right thing, but sometimes it's hard to swallow, but maybe you have to say sometimes the tzarot bring us closer together, and sometimes those tzarot allow us to see a Yad Hashem when we otherwise take it for granted. Maybe that's what he's trying to say here. Saying is that the Anshe Knesset Gedolah says exactly that. And what he's saying is the reason why, when we look at El HaGadol, HaGibor, HaNorah, each one of those Gadol, Gibor, Norah, each one of them corresponds to Elokei Abraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. Elokei Abraham is Gadol, Gibor is Yitzchak, as we know the Gevurah, and then Norah is Yaakov. And Yaakov, that's why Yaakov is the one who says, Man Norah HaMakom Hazeh. Why is this place so great? The awesomeness of Hashem is sometimes we don't appreciate the awesomeness of Hashem until we see the destruction. And that's what he's saying here.
Right. So to tie
Go ahead.
Yeah.
the vision you brought up, and what's the